The biggest scam in real estate is when people tell you that property management is a bitch and you shouldn't buy real estate because of it. Absolutely, 100% incorrect. Are there aspects of it that make it very difficult and bear? Yes, at times. But the returns you get to compensate yourself for that is well worth it. And I'm going to share with you how you can manage properties yourself and be successful at it. And the things I'm going to tell you about third-party property management might shock you because no one's talking about that. Everyone I see on the internet says, hire a third-party manager. They're experts. Also 100% false. Let's get into it. The first thing I hear, I don't want to get calls in the middle of the night. Guys, I currently own 1,000 units. And yes, I don't do the day-to-day management. But when I did the day-to-day management years ago, I had about 400 or 500 units at the time. So I was the manager at the properties running things. Guys, I got 2 phone calls in the night. One was at 9:30 at night, and one was at 2 o'clock in the morning. Both tenants were out, and I did not renew them after the lease was up. Now, you might sit there and say, what do you mean you didn't renew them? Guys, you as a property owner, and of course it matters in different areas, you have the right to say, I'm not renewing you. Get out. The first person called me because of a clogged sink, and I was like, what are you calling me at 9:30 at night about a clogged sink? Like, well, I just thought you want to know. Yeah, during normal hours. This is not an unlivable situation. The second person called me 2 a.m. on Christmas Eve and said that their ceiling was caving in. So of course I freaked out. They said, water's pouring into this unit. This is terrible. She said, I have a friend who can come over right here and now fix it. And I was scared. I said, fine, bring the friend over. The friend called me the next day and said, Paul, I don't know what she was saying. It was a little drip from the ceiling. That was it. And I said, thank you very much. That person's out the second their lease is over. And I called them and said, that was absolutely unprofessional. It was 2 o'clock in the morning and you blew up my phone for that. So in having hundreds and hundreds of units, I got 2 calls in the middle of the night. And Greg, can I tell you something? I'm really glad I got those calls. You know why? It got rid of 2 problem tenants. But other than that, it was smooth sailing. Most people want to respect your time. Most people are respectful people. Issue number 2, you'll always hear the scary stories. Oh, this person didn't pay their rent for a year and they ended up losing the property because their tenants didn't pay. If a tenant doesn't pay for an excess amount of time, there is one person at fault, and that person is the owner of the property. Now, of course, every state, every area has different rules. I live in Ohio. And the great thing about living in Ohio is it's very pro-landlord when it comes to non-payment of rent. Now, if you live in California, where they're all socialists there, who basically allow people to live for free, that's a different story. And understand that. But in vast majority of areas in the country, the person at fault for a tenant not paying the rent is the owner. We've bought properties many times where there was a list of arrears, and you go in, you lay the law down, and one of 2 things happens. Either the people who are just taking advantage start paying, or the ones who really couldn't pay are out. Either way, you're generating more income because the people who were just taking advantage are now paying. And when you kick out the people who weren't paying, you can now put in paying tenants. It's all based on area. So make sure you do your research, talk to a local housing lawyer, but don't let them put fear in your eyes because they want to sit there and make themselves feel, this is very scary. I got to be there for you. Just remember, when somebody doesn't pay their rent, you give them a 3-day notice after their time period expires, then you file the eviction. That's it. You should file your eviction very soon after. If you let it go for months, that's on you, not on the tenant. And the tenant's going to take advantage of that as long as they can. What amazes me, the third issue, is a lack of background and credit checks. I think it's hilarious when we evict the tenant because they don't pay and they end up finding a building next door to ours to go rent from. I'm like, these people not do a background check? They didn't do anything here? It's unbelievable to me. So many landlords don't do a background check. And a lot of small-time landlords who have 1 or 2 units will say, not worth the expense. It's not your expense. It's their expense. Why? You charge an application fee. If somebody's not willing to pay you $40 or $50 to apply to a property, how are they going to afford $1,000 in rent? They're not going to. It's a great way of weeding out the crap. And when do you do it? Not when they've seen the property. Ahead of time. When they're calling in, they say to you, hey, I want to come see the property. Great. We have a $50 application fee. We expect it upon application, blah, 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 blah. If they can't afford that or they don't want to pay that, they will not show up or they'll cancel the appointment. That's the best way to go. But you have to do a background check and a credit check. Another reason why is You got to protect your staff. You got to protect yourself. You've got to protect the other tenants if you have a multi-unit property. It's your responsibility to make sure you don't put in tough criminals into your area. And if people are taking advantage of you and not paying, it's going to affect the other tenants around you when you can't put money into your property. Now, the biggest one, third-party management is the best way to higher expenses, lower revenue, and lower profit. Guys, everyone I read on the internet says, go let the third-party managers handle it. They're the experts. Guys, I have employed 8 to 12 third-party managers in my career. And every single time I fire one, revenue goes up, expenses go down, profit goes up, and customer satisfaction increases. Why? Because they look at the wrong things. They want to have high physical occupancy. And you might sit there and say, well, doesn't everybody? I want high financial occupancy. Let me explain that because it's a very, very important distinction to understand. Let's say a unit has $1,000 in rent and it's 100% occupied. You're collecting $1,000. Okay. Let's say you have $1,500 in rent for the exact same unit, but you're 90% occupied. You're essentially collecting $1,350 per month. So somebody might brag, I have 100% occupancy. Your third-party manager is going to say, guys, we're doing great. Look at your 100% occupancy. When you're going to sit there and say, yeah, but I want 90% occupancy on $1,500. I'll collect $1,350. You're collecting 35% more money. It's essentially like being 30% vacant by having this situation. And every landlord in the world worries about this. I worry about physical occupancy because banks have requirements, but I worry most about is my financial occupancy. How do I drive up the rent? Guys, I recently did a poll on Twitter. I asked everybody, what's more important? To have the most expensive unit or the least expensive unit or about where the price is? Very few people said most expensive, but that's the right answer. You want the most expensive units in your area. And guess who doesn't want that? Third-party managers. Why? They want less work. Guys, it's just human nature. And if anybody out there is saying, no, mine is different, at every table there's a sucker. If you don't know who the sucker is, it's you. And you know what? I have friends who own third-party management companies. I look at them and say, you're not aligned with the potential of your clients. You're aligned with your own pocketbook, and that's fine. Be aware of that. And being a third-party manager is difficult. You know why? Because usually it's owners who say, I need this profit, because they're not doing the day-to-day. And that's a big reason why I started this channel. I want to teach people one very, very important thing. And this is another thing, and the final one that's very important that I want you to remember. Never, and I mean never, live off of your real estate cash flow while you're working. The only time I want you living off your real estate cash flow is after you've built your portfolio up and you decide to retire. That's it. Other than that, I want you to reinvest. Why? Because I want you to have that $1,500 rent, not the $1,000 rent. I want you to get that cash flow and grow the value of your property more and more tax-free. You're going to defer, you're going to take cash from today, invest it, and get higher rates of return. That's what's most important. So instead of relying on 3 or 4% appreciation, you can drive your values up 5 to 6% a year. And over a 30-year period, that's talking about 2x more money. Twice as much money by doing that. So I ask you a question. Would you rather live today on the money today and not reinvest back in your property? Or would you rather live on 2x the money later? That's the important question. I've never met a landlord in my life who lived off their real estate income while they were building it and had great properties. Never. They never had top rents. So guys, these were important things to discuss because these are absolutely things that no one in the real estate world talks about. In fact, I've heard many real estate people tell me, I've never heard anybody say, don't hire third-party managers and you want to have the most expensive rents on the street. So guys, if you like this, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel because we're here to help you build a portfolio of real estate and generate some really amazing wealth in your lifetime. Thank you for your time.